There is a particular kind of silence that arrives sometime after retirement, often later than people expect. The job that structured your decades is gone. The children who once filled your evenings have their own households now. And on a quiet afternoon, sitting alone in a house that used to feel full, a question arrives that 40 years of busyness never gave you time to ask. What now, and can I actually do this well alone? People meet that question with quiet dread. But there is a smaller group who meet it differently, who somehow grow steadier, sharper, and more genuinely content the longer they live alone in these years. Not because their circumstances are easier, but because they've quietly built something the Stoics understood 2,000 years before modern gerontology gave it a name. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 of those rules, drawn from men who faced solitude, loss, and aging with more composure than most of us manage over an inconvenient afternoon. Stay until the end, because the 10th rule is the one that determines whether the previous 9 actually hold, especially on the hardest days. Welcome back to Stoic, the place where ancient philosophy meets real life. If you're new here, this channel exists to take the hard-won wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca and turn it into something you can actually use, including in the years many people spend the least time preparing for. If that sounds like what you need, subscribe now. Let's begin. Rule 1. Treat solitude as company, not absence. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nowhere can a person find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in their own soul. He wrote this as Emperor of Rome, surrounded constantly by people, and yet he understood that genuine solitude was not the same thing as loneliness. Solitude, approached rightly, is a room you can furnish. Loneliness is a room you've left empty and are simply waiting to be filled by someone else. Function matters enormously in these decades. Living alone does not have to mean living emptily. Fill the solitude deliberately, with reading, with a private practice of reflection, with the quiet company of your own honest thoughts. And it stops functioning as an absence and starts functioning as a genuine retreat, exactly the way Marcus Aurelius described it. Rule 2. Keep a daily discipline even without a boss. When you worked, you had performance reviews, deadlines, colleagues who noticed if you slipped. Retirement removes almost all of that external scaffolding, and for many people this creates a quiet, creeping drift, not from weakness, but simply because the structure that used to hold discipline in place is gone. Seneca and the Stoics practiced a nightly review specifically to rebuild this scaffolding from the inside. Each evening, ask yourself 3 honest questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short of who I want to be? What will I do differently tomorrow? This takes 10 minutes and turns the vast open hours of these years into a structured practice of ongoing improvement, rather than simply time passing without direction. Rule 3. Walk with attention, not just for exercise. Marcus Aurelius composed many of his most important reflections while walking the frontier camps, observing the natural world around him. Walking, done with real attention rather than as mere exercise, is a practice the Stoics called prosos, sustained attention, and it is one of the most powerful tools available for keeping an aging mind genuinely sharp. On your next walk, leave the phone in your pocket, skip the podcast, and simply notice 5 things you've never noticed before: the specific color of a leaf, the sound of a particular bird, the way morning light falls across a fence. This isn't about the steps. It's about training the mind to stay awake to the world instead of drifting through it. If these first 3 rules are landing for you, drop the word steady in the comments. I want to know how many of you are building this alongside me. Rule 4. Read deeply, not widely. Seneca advised his friend Lucilius to read a few books deeply and repeatedly, rather than skimming widely across everything available. He compared shallow, scattered reading to a traveler who visits many countries but has no home anywhere. Research on cognitive aging consistently finds that genuine, sustained reading is one of the strongest predictors of preserved mental sharpness into old age. Begin with a single page each morning before anything else. Sit with it. Ask yourself honestly whether it applies to your life right now. Seneca called this reading philosophy a conversation with the dead, and for anyone whose social circle has naturally contracted over the years, it offers something remarkable. Company that never grows tired, never moves away, and is never too busy to speak with you. Rule 5. Let your hands do honest work. Epictetus, before he became a philosopher, lived among craftsmen and tradesmen, and it shaped how he taught, constantly using the metaphor of the skilled carpenter or sculptor whose hands and judgment had been trained together over years. Working with your hands, woodworking, gardening, pottery, repair, offers something almost no other activity offers in the same concentrated form. Honest, immediate feedback that has nothing to do with anyone else's opinion of you. Not lie. If a joint is imprecise, it will not fit. This kind of feedback, entirely free of office politics or vague social judgment, is genuinely restorative, especially after decades spent managing other people's impressions of your work. Rule 6. Practice amor fati through the garden. The Stoics had a concept called amor fati, the love of fate, an active embrace of reality exactly as it is, including its limitations and its endings. There is no better teacher of this than a garden, which operates entirely on its own schedule, indifferent to your impatience or your plans. A retired person who takes up gardening is, whether they realize it or not, enrolled in a daily lesson on the dichotomy of control. You do the part that's yours, the watering, the soil, the placement in sun or shade. You release your grip on the part that isn't, the weather, the unpredictable behavior of nature itself. Some seasons the harvest is abundant. Some seasons a late frost destroys everything. The Stoic gardener does not rage at the frost. They simply plant again next season. We are past the halfway point now. Everything from here builds toward the rule that determines whether the previous 5 actually hold on the genuinely difficult days. If you've made it this far, drop the word purpose in the comments. I want to know which rule is already shifting something for you today. Rule 7. Mentor someone, even informally. The Stoics believed human beings are, in Marcus Aurelius's words, made for cooperation, the way upper and lower rows of teeth are made to work together. A life spent purely in private leisure was, for the Stoics, only half-lived. After decades of hard-won specific knowledge, most retirees have something rare to offer that simply evaporates unused without a deliberate channel to pass it along. This does not need to be formal. A grandchild, a young neighbor, someone newer in a field you spent a career mastering. Seneca wrote that in teaching others, we teach ourselves twice over. The explaining sharpens your own understanding, and the sense of being genuinely useful to someone else's growth restores something no amount of private leisure ever quite can. Rule 8. Face your mortality through physical discipline. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly of memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a source of despair, but as a tool for clarity and urgency. After 60, mortality stops being an abstract concept and becomes a present physical reality, and most people respond to that awareness by avoiding it entirely. A structured, regular physical practice, swimming, tai chi, walking, appropriate strength work, is memento mori made physical. It is a direct, honest engagement with your body's actual current capabilities, not the capabilities you had at 30, met with humility rather than denial. This isn't about reversing time. It's about being genuinely fully present in the body you actually have today for as long as you have it. Rule 9. Keep a nightly, honest reckoning. Return again to the practice Seneca described, learned from an earlier philosopher named Sextius. Each night, before sleep, ask what bad habit you curbed, what fault you resisted, in what way you were better. This is not journaling for its own sake. It is a private, honest audit, conducted gently, like a friend reviewing your conduct rather than an enemy searching for ammunition. For someone living alone, this practice does something particularly valuable. It interrupts the vague, unexamined sense that days are simply passing without being fully lived, and it replaces that quiet anxiety with actual specific evidence gathered nightly that you are still growing. Rule 10. Anchor every day in a reason to rise. Here is the final rule, the one that ties everything else together. The Roman Stoics had a phrase, otium sine literis mors est, leisure without purpose is a kind of death. Rest without direction does not restore a person. It slowly erodes them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a human being not doing the work proper to a human being is like an eye that has closed itself off from seeing. This is why the question is never simply, how do I fill my time after retirement? The real question is, how do I choose activities that actively cultivate wisdom, connection, and vitality in the years that matter most? The 7, 8, 9 hours a day you now have that you didn't have before are not empty space to be feared. They are the largest gift of freedom you have received since childhood, and how you fill them is, in a very real sense, the final test of the character you spent a lifetime building. 10 rules. Treat solitude as company, not absence. Keep a daily discipline even without a boss. Walk with genuine attention. Read deeply rather than widely. Let your hands do honest, feedback-rich work. Practice amor fati through the patience of a garden. Mentor someone even informally. Face your mortality through physical discipline. Keep a nightly honest reckoning. And anchor every single day in a reason to rise that belongs entirely to you. None of these require youth, money, or circumstances you don't currently have. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus built this entire philosophy while facing grief, exile, and enslavement, and it has survived 2,000 years because it was never dependent on easy circumstances in the first place. Pick one rule that made you pause somewhere in this video and begin this week, deliberately, on purpose. If this video gave you something worth carrying into tomorrow, hit that like button and subscribe to Wax and Stoic for more practical wisdom exactly like this. Tell me in the comments which rule you're starting with and which one you already practice. I read every single comment. Until next time, you have not run out of chances to live well. You have, in many ways, been given the first truly open chapter of your life. Choose it deliberately.